Straight up. Welcome to your Way Happy Bible Study. I'm Lisa Dennis Sparks, and you're watching Christians United Broadcasting Network. CUBN, where we want to see you be encouraged in Jesus' name. Welcome back to your Way Happy Bible Study on CUBN. Glory to God. Okay, we are in Exodus chapter 21. And verse 17, he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Your father and your mother took care of you, brought you into this world. You owe them your respect. Okay? In verse 18, and if men strive together, and one smite another with a stone, or with his fist, and he die not, but keepeth his bed. He's hurt. He's down. Okay? So if you smite another, if you hit somebody with a rock or with your fist, and he doesn't die, but you've hurt him, and he's down. In verse 19, if he rise again and walk abroad upon his staff, he's limping. He's got a staff to walk. Then shall he that smote him be quit. So it's saying if you hurt somebody, if they get back up, even if they limp and they have to use a staff to get around, it's okay. You know, you don't have to go to prison or anything like that. But only he shall pay for the loss of his time. So the person that hurt him still has to pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. You have to take care of the guy until he's healed, if you hurt him. In verse 20, and if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished. You don't hit somebody so hard that you kill them during punishment. In verse 21, notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. If he's saying that the man, if the owner punishes the servant and they are down for a day or two after that punishment, the owner won't be punished, because that servant is an asset to him. He's lost a couple of days worth of that servant working, which is his punishment. If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her. So if he hits a pregnant woman and causes her to lose her baby, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished. You're going to be punished for the loss of that child, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him. So it's up to her husband how that punishment is going to come about. And he shall pay as the judges determine. So there is a price to be paid for allowing your anger out. In verse 23, and if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. So if he is refusing to make it good, or if he's refusing to follow the law and pay what he's supposed to according to what her husband lays upon him, then the man's life will be taken. Life for the baby he took. In verse 24, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. This is the law. If you cause someone to lose their foot, you're going to lose yours. If you put someone's eye out, your eye is going to be put out. If you hit them in the mouth and they lose a tooth, you're going to lose a tooth. That's tit for tat on the law. In verse 25, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. If you burn someone, you're going to get burnt. If you give them a wound, you're going to get a similar wound. If you give them stripes, you're going to get stripes. In verse 26, and if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, so that they can't use it anymore, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. If he smites the eye of his servant or his maid, so that they can't ever use their eye again. It won't ever work again. That master has to set that servant free. In verse 27, and if he smite out his manservant's tooth or his maidservant's tooth, if he gets mad and hits him in the mouth, knocks one of their teeth out, he shall let him go free for the tooth's sake. And if an ox gore a man or a woman that they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten. You don't eat that ox. An ox that, if it gores someone and kills them, and they die, the ox must be stoned, and you can't eat it. But the owner of the ox shall be quit. It means the owner of the ox is not responsible. Okay? You kill the ox. But if the ox were wont to push with his horn in time past, if the ox has acted in a way that shows you that it has a tendency to gore someone or attack someone, and it hath been testified to his owner, and he hath not kept him in. So if he's got an ox that has a tendency to go after people and want to hurt them, he better keep that ox enclosed to where it's not out able to hurt people. But that he hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death. He's saying, if you know that ox is going to hurt somebody, if it has shown behavior that indicates it has a tendency to push people with his horn, that he's going to hurt someone, and you don't stop, if you don't keep that ox in and away from people, and then it kills somebody after you knew it was displaying that kind of behavior, the owner shall also be put to death. In verse 30, if there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatever is laid upon him. So, if the victim's family says, rather than you dying, you must pay us this amount for the life your animal took, then that owner has to give that amount, which the family set for the ransom of that life that the animal took. So it's like damages, okay? In verse 31, whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done unto him. The ox shall push a man, if the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So, if the ox, if this ox gores someone's son or daughter, then that is more serious. But it says, if the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, then the owner has to give unto that servant's master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. In verse 33, and if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, if he doesn't cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good and give money unto the owner of whatever animal fell in it, and the dead beast shall belong to the man with the pit, but he has to pay. And if one man's ox hurt another's, if the oxes fight, and one man's ox hurt another's that he die, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the money of it. And the dead ox also shall they will divide. In verse 36, see how God is perfectly just. Or if it be known that the ox hath used to push in time past, and his owner hath not kept him in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead shall be his own. Wow. Let's go straight into chapter 22. Let me see where we are here. Ooh, our time's going fast. Chapter 22 of the book of Exodus, in verse 1. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. That would deter theft, wouldn't it? Verse 2, if a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. This is saying if a thief breaks into your house and you kill him defending your home and your family, there's no penalty. In verse 3, if the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him. So if he's coming in during the daytime, then blood should be shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double, rather than 5 times or 4 times. So if he takes, if the thief is caught red-handed with the animal and it's still alive, he has to restore double. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, if you let your animals feed in someone's field that is not yours, it says, if a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. So if your animal goes into your neighbor's yard and starts eating their garden and trampling down their garden and things like that, you have to give them the very best part of your field or your vineyard to make it right. In verse 6, if fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or the standing corn or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. So if the person who set the fire and let it get away from them, if it destroys someone else's property, the person that set that fire has to make restitution and make it right. In verse 7, if a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house. So let's say you have $1,000 and you want your friend or neighbor to keep it for you. But a thief comes in and takes it. It says, if a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of that person's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he have put his hand unto the neighbor's goods. So if the thief be not found, the judges are going to look at the neighbor who was supposed to be taking care of the property. In verse 9, for all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, that's clothing, or for any manner of a lost thing which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. So see, these say you pay double, or you pay 5 times or 4 times or whatever. It doesn't say you just restore once. You pay double or more. In verse 10, if a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep for him, and it die or be hurt or driven away, no man seeing what happened. In verse 11, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he hath not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods. And the owner of it shall accept thereof, and he shall not make it good. So if a man let's say you give your neighbor a sheep to keep for you, and it either dies or it gets hurt or it's driven away or it's just gone, then there's an oath of the Lord between the two of them, and the neighbor has to swear an oath that he did not put his hand to that man's sheep to hurt it or kill it, or didn't steal it, didn't sell it. He's without blame. He has to give oath that he's without blame. Then the owner of it shall accept that, and the neighbor doesn't have to make it good if he swears he had no part in the problem. In verse 12, and if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. So if it's stolen, then the neighbor has to make restitution. In verse 13, if it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. So if your neighbor says, a wild animal got into my fence while I was keeping your sheep for you and killed your sheep, the owner does not have to pay for the sheep. In verse 14, and if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. So if your neighbor borrows your sheep for some reason, for breeding purposes or whatever, and it gets hurt or dies, the owner, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be an hired thing, it came for his hire. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. So if a man entices a woman to have a physical encounter with him, and she is not engaged to anyone, and, they have a physical encounter, he must take her to be his wife. In verse 17, if her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. So he's going to have to pay a dowry as though she was a virgin. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Yes, this is saying if you know of a witch, you are not supposed to suffer them to live. That is part of what got Saul, Israel's first king, in trouble. He went to go and visit the witch of Endor to ask Samuel a question. Samuel had died, and he wanted to talk. He wanted Samuel brought back from the dead so he could talk to him, the prophet. But see, right here in the law, it says, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. If you can identify someone as a witch, you get rid of them. They are to be killed. In verse 19, but you can't just kill somebody going, well, they were a witch. You have to bring them before the people and show that they're a witch, and then the people as a whole sentences her or him or whatever. In verse 19 of Exodus chapter 22, whosoever lieth with a beast, that's bestiality, that's nasty, shall surely be put to death. You do not have any type of physical encounter that is sexual with an animal. If you do, you are put to death. He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. You do not give sacrifices unto false gods. In verse 21 of chapter 22, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him. For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. So if you have a stranger that comes, you are not supposed to vex them, which means cause them trouble. Nor oppress him, which is giving him a hard time, or requiring anything of him that you shouldn't. You're not supposed to do that. In verse 22, ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. You do not afflict widows and orphans. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. That's perfect justice. This is all perfect justice. Okay? In verse 25 of Exodus 22. Oh, wow. We're supposed to have already signed off. Oh, well, what can I say? Okay. Next time, that'd be next week. We do shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. And when we get back together again next Tuesday for the show, we'll start again in Exodus chapter 22 and verse 25 at that time. I love you guys. God bless you. Thank you for studying with me today. And should the Lord tarry, we will see you next week on Tuesday, here, there, or in the air. Straight up. Straight up.